Hey YouTube, it is me, Turkish Delight, at least according to my court audit. So, we're going to be talking again about the Teno and Carno 1v1. This will be episode 2. These are some example tests between me and Eren Yeager, who is a Carno sweat, basically. And we basically try to get better at playing Teno in order to beat his Carno. Eren's a very, very unpredictable Carno. What Eren does is a trick that I've been telling you guys to use, which is to not hold your ram at all, but instead to tap the ram and to have very, very good, conscience of when to go in and when to not go in. Effectively, during these tests, the most important thing to do was to be as unpredictable as Eren is when he's going in for a charge. Because if you are making simple turns, turns that would normally outturn a charging Carno, you will get hit. Furthermore, there is a Carno tech that needs to be addressed, which we basically called ghosting. Raptor can actually do this with its pounce, but we haven't found a reliable way to do it. How the ghosting works is that because the delta time of the server is at an SFPS of 30, it means that the game is basically updating half as slow as, with half as many ticks as 60 FPS, for example. So what this means is that in a second, instead of having 60 checks, it will only do 30. This means that if you turn your camera slightly while doing the charge, very, very quickly, and turn it back, you can actually flick the charge to hit onto your side, which is very powerful to do. It can actually help you get some pretty cheeky shots. During these initial 1v1s, I did very, very badly, because of course we were just experimenting and we were seeing what would work. But as time goes on, I start getting better and better, to the point that my Teno then starts to beat Eren's Carno. And it ends up being a very, very fair fight in which it's the player who plays better. Of course, things to notice about Carno. When you have two Carnos, I cannot say that you are twice as strong by having two Carnos as compared to one. Simply because the options that having two Carnos allows you to do far outweigh what a one Carno doubled would allow it to do, if that makes sense. For example, if one of you goes in and doesn't charge and just attacks, the other one can actually then go in and charge and then knock it down, and the other one's ready for the hit. So that's pretty damn powerful, not gonna lie. Another thing to note from the bleed videos I was telling you guys about for Teno versus Carno is that it takes about 3 kicks to the Carno's head and the Carno running for it to go down to 5% bleed. And for the Teno, 2 headshots will take it down to nearly 2 headshots no charge will take it down to nearly 50% of his health, and the bleed will take the Teno down to about 70 bleed. So these are pretty important numbers to look out for. This video is going to be pretty long, and I will eventually stop talking, and you'll just have the the game sounds in the background, and you guys can try and learn. I will skip forward in the video in terms of me reacting to it, so I can talk to you guys about a few more interesting things. One thing to note with dodging charges, for example, is being unpredictable. How do you be unpredictable, basically, is that you don't give a clear giveaway of when you're going to do the dodge. How do you dodge the Carno charge? Effectively, you want to take a large circle where the Carno can't react to it, such that you're almost parallel with the Carno's body as this large circle is going about, and then you'll dodge it. However, if you just do simple baits, like if you always go left and then do the long turn, the Carno is just not going to charge. It's going to wait until it's right on you and just run into you and then just charge as it reaches you. And you're going to get hit. We then also tried using the map to our advantage with these really big bushes, which definitely helps out a lot. But the thing I mainly try to do, which is counterproductive, because if I tell everyone what I do, it's just going to mean that everyone will do what I do, in theory, and then the Carno can react to that. But what I do is that I run forward to make distance, and then I do smaller baits towards the left or the right. Then when the Carno gets closer, I do a longer bait to one side to get it to turn, and then when I see its head physically turn that direction, I then do the longer full dodge on the opposite side. This means that the Carno doesn't really have the proper time to react to it effectively. So there's that. Yeah. In the second fight, I'm fairly sure Eren decided to try not using charges and just going for bites, which was pretty interesting, just to see if it's doable. It's somewhat doable. The third fight was a fight where Haru takes control of the Teno as a better Teno player. And we wanted to see how he would deal with this Carno and how Eren would deal with his Teno. What we saw was that we figured out effectively that being aggressive is far more important, which is something that I'll actually mention here. Yeah, it's hard to explain effectively. There's good aggressiveness and there's bad aggressiveness when it comes to Teno, in that you do not want to just be running, chasing after something, and then just blowing all your stam and whipping your attacks because you're rushing. Effectively, what you really want to do is, how'd you say? You want to kind of brawl with the Carno. You want to get the Carno in close, such that you will eventually find a situation for you to attack. The best place to be aggressive is actually after a dodge. After a dodge, you want to close the gap with the Carno as soon as possible to get the Carno to run away. Effectively, you'll get to a point where the Carno will not have the stam to run away and might get desperate, in which case you'll have the opportunity to tail slam it and get those kicks in. A thing to note, which is very, very important, again, sort of going all over the place with this, is that with Eren's method of the Carno charge, you cannot reliably tail slam him out of it. We have tried multiple times, even with point blank, like in a straight line. It is incredibly hard to charge him out. The reason for this is due to the fact that you have to tail slam so far away from the Carno, because the Teno's tail slam applies the stun when the tail hits the ground. So, say for example, the Carno is running through your tail sideways, and you tail slam when the head reaches your tail. Because the Carno is so fast, when the tail hits the ground, it's only hitting its tail, or if you're lucky, its legs. If you're unlucky, it will actually be hitting its tail, which then won't cause a stun. Haha, interesting. Which is why some of you may see while playing Teno that you tail slam a dinosaur and it just doesn't stun them. This is because it applies when the tail slam hits them, which means you'd have to tail slam earlier. Here's the issue with tail slamming earlier. If they know that you tail slam earlier, they're going to fake it and then run in towards your head. They're then going to curve towards your head afterwards, which means that you actually need to keep moving as the Teno. The stationary gameplay doesn't work properly, you know? So, yeah, there's a lot in it. Carno makes Teno play a bit differently, whereas Teno versus Cerrado, you want to be stationary. You want to be stationary so that you can, because if you keep moving, when you start getting lower food and slower water, you're going to be bleeding out a lot. And if you're running, that turns your bleed multiplier to a 3 times multiplier when you're running, which then means that your bleed drops severely very, very quickly. So, very important to note. However, with the Carno, you want to be moving around and being aggressive. Yeah, so overall, actually, the Carno versus Teno 1v1 is fairly balanced, actually. It's genuinely a very, very balanced fight. It's just based on who plays better and who has the patience. Obviously, if the Carno ambushes you, the Carno's fight is already in its favor. It's not in your favor. If you play extremely well, you can defend yourself against the Carno and potentially actually make a break for it and escape. Or deal enough bleed damage, for example, 3 kicks, 1 body hit. And that body hit can be an alt bite, you know, so consider that. And the Carno will bleed down to 5% of its bleed pool. So you can use that as your advantage. Yeah, that's about everything. Now, we haven't really had the time to test groups, because we just don't have enough people to test a full Teno group as a full Carno group. But it's going to be harder, because each Teno, if you then start doing stationary, as I've already told, it's not going to work properly. You're going to get charged through, and you're going to be hitting each other. So you kind of need to spread out. But if you spread out, the Carnos can focus one Teno. So effectively, it's a bit more delicate. If you have a lot of good Tenos in a herd, it's going to be much better. Effectively, what you want to do is spread out, but be close enough in formation, such that, say for example, you have 5 Tenos, you have 1 in the middle, and then the other 4 sort of like in a box formation around it. That means that if one Teno gets focused, there are always 3 Tenos that can go and support it, if that makes sense. And if that Teno is being focused, it can then move towards the middle. If you guys can visualize what I'm saying, it makes a lot more sense. But yeah, you can effectively defend yourself against multiple Carnos. That's everything. Yeah, so overall, in my opinion, Carno is the strongest carnivore we have, but it's not overpowered. That's the main thing to talk about here. It's not an overpowered dinosaur. It's fairly balanced. So yeah, that's all. Hope this information at least is interesting, and the 1v1s help you guys out. And that's about all. If you have any more questions, always please leave them in the comments, and you guys can discuss as well and see if maybe there's some things that we didn't think of and they actually work really, really well for Teno. Unless, of course, it's using the environment to your advantage, because we've done some tests that I haven't shown you where we use certain locations to our advantage as the Teno. And when I produce the Teno guide, I will be telling you guys where the strongest defensive strongholds are for Teno, where you can like really punish anything that goes after you. So yeah, peace out, I guess. Story time's over. Fuck off.